I used to think silence in a marriage was like dust on a bookshelf, harmless until you finally run a finger across it and realize it has been building for a long time. I did not notice it at first, because my life was busy in the normal way. Deadlines, grocery lists, small plans for weekends that never happened. And then one Tuesday, the silence became heavy enough that even the refrigerator sounded like it was trying to talk to me. My wife Nadia used to narrate everything. She would comment on the neighbor's new car. She would argue with the weather app. She would laugh at her own jokes before I got the chance. Then slowly she stopped. First the jokes, then the questions, then even the basic courtesy words like good morning. She still lived in the same apartment, but she moved through it like a guest waiting for a ride. Her phone became the center of gravity, always in her hand, always face down on the counter, always leaving the room with her like it was an extra organ. I told myself it was stress, that her new job had burned her out, that I was being dramatic. I am the kind of man who likes facts, and when I do not have facts, my brain tries to build a story from vibes, and vibes are terrible authors. One night I cooked dinner and set 2 plates like I always did. She walked in, looked at the food, said she was not hungry, and went straight to the shower without looking at me. I stood there holding a spoon like it was evidence in a case I did not want to open. Later, when she came out, hair wet, face blank, she sat on the edge of the bed and scrolled through her phone with the focus of someone defusing a bomb. I asked if everything was okay. She said fine. The way people say fine when they mean do not ask again. I did not yell. I did not beg. I did not chase. I just watched, because when someone suddenly stops treating you like home, your body notices before your pride admits it. Over the next weeks, she started collecting small habits that did not belong to us. She took calls on the balcony even when it was cold. She smiled at her screen like it was telling her secrets. She began accusing me of things that made no sense, like being controlling because I asked what time she would be back, like being selfish because I asked if we could eat together once this week. Every accusation landed like a smoke bomb, messy, distracting, making it hard to see what was actually happening. And then came the first twist that should have made me act sooner. My business partner Malik invited us to a charity event, the kind with rented lights and speeches that pretend not to be speeches. Nadia agreed to go, which surprised me because lately she treated my invitations like spam email. At the event, she wore the red dress I bought her 2 years ago. The one she said was too bold. She looked amazing, and for a moment I felt stupid for doubting anything. Then she spent most of the night away from me, not talking to strangers, not networking, just disappearing into corners to check her phone. When I found her near the hallway, she startled like I caught her stealing. Then she forced a smile, kissed my cheek quickly, and said she was just tired. I looked around and noticed she kept angling her body away from the room like she was waiting for someone to appear. That was when Malik's sister leaned toward me and whispered that Nadia seemed distracted, and she asked if everything was okay at home. She said it gently, but my stomach still dropped, because when other people notice, it means the storm is loud on the drive back. Nadia stared out the window like the city lights were subtitles. I tried again. I said we could talk. We could fix things. We could take a weekend away. She said nothing. Then she said one sentence that replayed in my mind for days. She said, "You always make everything about you." It was such an unfair line that I almost laughed. Because I was the one watching my marriage evaporate while she acted like I had spilled water on the floor. That night I slept on my side of the bed and she slept on her side. The space between us felt like a hallway. The next morning I woke up early and found she was already dressed. She said she had an appointment. Her tone was flat. Her eyes did not meet mine. I noticed a new perfume on her sweater, something sweeter than what she usually wore. I asked if she changed perfumes. She said no, and walked out before I could finish my sentence. I spent that day doing what men like me do when our lives get weird. I worked. I organized numbers. I answered emails like my inbox could save me. And I told myself I would not become paranoid, because paranoia is a flimsy substitute for truth. Then came the moment that cracked everything open. It was a Friday evening. My phone died while I was cooking. I wanted to call my friend Evan to confirm we were still meeting later. My charger was in the car. Nadia's phone was on the counter, face up for once. I hesitated for a second, because we had never been the kind of couple that snooped. Then I told myself I was only making a call. That is it. I picked it up. I unlocked it because I knew her code. The same 4 digits she once told me were our lucky numbers. I went to the keypad to dial, and a notification slid down from the top of the screen. Just a preview of a message. 3 words that did not belong in my kitchen. Miss you already? My hand stopped moving. My brain did that strange, calm thing it does right before a major disaster, like it was trying to protect me from the full impact. I tapped the notification without thinking, and the message thread opened, and there it was. A name saved with a harmless emoji, like the kind you use for a coworker, except the messages were not about work. They were about meetings, lies, and how easy it was to keep me in the dark. I did not scroll far yet. I just stared. And in that stare, I felt something in me shift. Not heartbreak first, not rage. Something colder, clarity, because the truth does not always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrives like a receipt you cannot return. I heard Nadia's key in the door, and for a split second I considered pretending I never saw anything. Then I realized that version of me had already died quietly over the last few months. I locked the phone screen, placed it back exactly where it was, and I smiled when she walked in. Not because I was fine, but because I needed her to believe I was still the man she thought she could fool. And while she talked in short answers and walked to the bedroom, my mind made one decision. I would not scream. I would not plead. I would not perform pain for someone who had already chosen. I would collect facts. I would protect myself. And I would wait for the right moment to let the truth speak for itself. And that night, while she slept, facing away from me like always, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet, and I planned my next move with the patience of someone who finally understands the game they are in. The next morning, I moved through the apartment like a man carrying a glass of water in an earthquake. Careful, steady, pretending nothing had changed while everything had. Nadia made coffee and slid past me without touching. She wore that new, sweet perfume again. Or maybe it was clinging to her from someone else. My mind tried to bargain. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a joke thread. Maybe she had a friend who wrote like a soap opera villain. Then I remembered the line about keeping me in the dark, and the bargaining died. I waited until she left for work. Then I did what I always do when life gets chaotic. I built a clean plan. Step 1 was to get proof without getting caught. Because confrontation without facts is just drama, and I do not do drama for free. I checked my own phone, low battery. Like it had timed this perfectly, I charged it, backed up my important work files, and went online to read about transferring messages and backups. I felt almost ridiculous, like a man studying for a test he never signed up for. But the more I read, the calmer I got. Calm is a strange gift you get when you stop hoping and start preparing. That evening, Nadia came home later than usual, said traffic, then said she had to answer some emails, and disappeared into the bedroom with her phone. I stayed in the living room and watched a mindless show with the volume low, waiting. When she finally came out to take a shower, she left her phone on the nightstand, face down, like always. I did not rush. I counted to 20. Then I walked in like I belonged there. Because I did. And I took it. I sat at the kitchen table, hands steady, heart loud. I unlocked it, went straight to the message thread, and this time I scrolled. I saw plans, excuses, inside jokes about me, compliments that made my stomach turn because they sounded like the cheap lines people write when they want something without responsibility. And there were photos, not explicit, but intimate in a way that told the whole story. A hand on a steering wheel that was not our car, a dinner table I had never seen, a selfie in a mirror with a shirt I did not recognize, and every message had a timestamp, dates, places, proof that this was not a bad week. This was a second life. I took screenshots. I forwarded what I could to myself. I recorded the screen with my phone, slow and thorough, like documenting a broken contract. Then I saw something that shifted the situation from betrayal to danger. A message from a clinic reminder. Not a romantic line. Not a flirty emoji. Just a cold notification about a test result and a follow-up appointment. I felt my jaw tighten. Not from jealousy, from the realization that her choices were now trying to climb into my life in a more serious way. I did not read details. I did not need to. The implication was enough. I saved the reminder too. Not because I wanted to shame her, but because I needed to protect myself from any future rewriting of reality. When I finished, I put her phone back exactly where it was, and I washed my hands like I had just handled something toxic. I sat alone and stared at the wall, and I laughed once, quietly, because the universe has a weird sense of timing. My phone dies, and her secret life lights up like a billboard. Nadia came out of the shower and asked what I was smiling about. I said I remembered something funny from work. She nodded like she did not care, and in that nod I felt something click. She had already emotionally left. She just had not moved her stuff yet. The next day I booked a doctor appointment for myself. No panic, just responsibility, and I did not tell her. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I did not want a performance of concern from someone who had been performing coldness for months. While waiting for my appointment, I started quietly separating my life. I checked our shared accounts. Nothing missing. But I printed statements anyway. I changed passwords. I updated my emergency contacts. I called Malik and told him I might need extra focus at work. No details, just a heads up. Malik has always been the kind of friend who does not demand a story when you are holding your breath. He just said, "I have you." I also called Evan, and for the first time I said out loud that something was wrong. He asked if I wanted him to come over. I said not yet, because I needed to do one more thing first. I needed to look this betrayal in the face and watch what it tried to become when exposed. The confrontation happened on a Wednesday. Not because Wednesdays are special, but because that was the day Nadia came home early, which was unusual lately. She walked in holding a bag from a bakery, smiling like she had remembered how to be a wife for 5 minutes, and I almost respected the strategy. Bring sugar. Soften the ground. She set the bag down and said we should talk. She said she felt distant. She said she missed us. She said maybe we could take a trip. It was the most words she had given me in weeks, and if I had not seen what I saw, I might have melted. I might have felt grateful for crumbs. Instead, I nodded, calmly, and said, "Sure. Let us talk." She looked relieved, like her plan was working. I walked to the bedroom and came back with my phone in my hand. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, and the air between us felt sharp. She asked why I looked so serious. I unlocked my phone and turned the screen toward her. I did not raise my voice. I did not add commentary. I simply slid the evidence across the table with my thumb. Screenshot after screenshot. Timestamps, names, the clinic reminder, her lover's jokes, the little lies. Her face changed in slow motion, first confusion, then recognition, then that blank panic people get when they realize the story in their head is about to collapse. She tried to speak, but her mouth did not cooperate. She reached for the phone. I pulled it back gently, not aggressive, just final. She whispered my name like it was a life jacket. Then she said, "Please listen to me." And there it was. The first full sentence she had offered me that mattered, and I almost smiled again. Because now she wanted words. Now she wanted connection. Now she wanted the thing she had been freezing out of our home. I leaned back, breathed once, and I said I already listened. I listened every night while you turned your back. I listened every time you called me selfish for wanting basic respect. I listened to your silence, and it told me everything. She started crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears falling like her face had given up. She said it was a mistake. She said it did not mean anything. She said she felt lonely. She said she was confused. She said the classic lines people pull off the shelf when they get caught. And I did not interrupt. I let her words run until they ran out of fuel. Then she said the one thing that actually mattered. She said there was something I needed to know about her health. And she said it like she was trying to warn me while also protecting herself. I felt my spine go straight. I told her I had already taken care of my own health, and her eyes widened, because she realized I was not helpless. I was not waiting for her to guide the narrative. I was already steps ahead. She reached across the table and tried to take my hand. I pulled back. Not with disgust, with boundaries. She said, "Please do not leave. Please, we can fix this. Please just hear me out." And I stood up, quietly. I picked up my keys. I picked up the bakery bag too, because I am not above taking pastries from a failed negotiation. She stared at me like she could not believe I was not exploding. And that was the point. I told her I am not going to argue for my own dignity. I am not going to compete with a stranger for a spot in my own marriage, and I am not going to be your backup plan, she said. Where are you going? I said somewhere you cannot edit into a different story. Then I walked to the door, and behind me I heard her voice break as she said, please, just listen. And I paused. Not because I was tempted, but because I wanted her to understand this moment clearly. I turned around and said I did listen, and now I am done. And I walked out. And the hallway outside our apartment felt colder than usual, but it also felt clean, like the first breath after leaving a room filled with smoke. And as the elevator doors closed, I realized the hardest part was not leaving. The hardest part would be what came next. Because when you walk away without yelling, people assume you will come back. And I had no intention of proving them right. I did not go to a bar. I did not go to my mother's house. I did not do any of the movie things people expect when a marriage cracks. I went to a 24-hour diner where the coffee tastes like decisions and the lights make everyone look honest. I sat in a booth and stared at the little metal holder with sugar packets, like it was a tiny filing cabinet for my new life. Evan arrived in 10 minutes because he is that kind of friend, the kind who does not ask for headlines first. He slid into the seat across from me, looked at my face and said, okay, tell me the clean version. So I told him the clean version. My wife had been living a second life. I found the messages. I showed her. I left. He nodded slowly, then asked the one question a real friend asks. Are you safe? And I said yes. And then I added the part about the clinic reminder and my own appointment. Evan exhaled like he had been holding his breath. He said, good. Handle your health first. Handle your money second. Handle your feelings last. Because feelings will wait, but bills do not. I laughed once because it was blunt and true, and in that booth I made 3 rules for myself. No revenge stunts, no late-night texting, no giving her a stage to rewrite what she did. If she wanted a conversation, she could have asked before she started auditioning for a secret relationship. When I finally went home, I did not go to our apartment. I went to Malik's spare room. He did not ask questions either. He just handed me a clean towel and said, take the bed. Tomorrow we work. And that simple kindness hit me harder than any apology ever could. The next day I met with a lawyer. Not because I wanted to punish Nadia, but because I wanted reality to have paperwork. My lawyer was a calm woman named Teresa, who spoke like she had seen every kind of human mistake and did not judge the person, she judged the facts. She told me to document everything, separate finances, avoid emotional negotiations, and protect my business. I blinked at that last part and said, what does my business have to do with it? And Teresa said you would be surprised how often personal chaos becomes professional sabotage, and I did not want to believe her. But my life had already proven that surprises love me. I also got my medical results back, and I will keep this respectful and simple. I needed treatment and follow-up. I was lucky that I acted quickly, and the relief I felt was mixed with anger because luck should not be part of marriage safety. That was the moment my sadness turned into something sharper. Not hatred, not obsession. Just a deep, clean resolve that my life would not be run by someone else's recklessness. Nadia called that evening. I watched the screen light up with her name, and I let it ring. She texted, please come home. Then another, I can explain. Then another, I am sorry. The classic staircase of panic. I did not respond, not because I was trying to be cruel, but because I knew if I replied once, she would pull me into a loop where I became the manager of her guilt, and I was done with that job. Over the next week, she tried different doors. She showed up at Malik's office building once. She waited in the lobby with that red dress like it was armor. The receptionist called me. I looked down through the glass from the second floor and saw her sitting there with perfect posture and ruined eyes, and I felt something in my chest tighten. Not love, memory. I told the receptionist to say I am unavailable. Then I turned back to my work. Malik watched me and said, you are doing the right thing. I said, I know. And that was true. But knowing does not erase the ache. It just keeps it from driving the car. Then the first real twist arrived. The kind that makes you realize betrayal is rarely contained to romance. It leaks. My company had been in talks for a big contract with a local logistics firm. It was not glamorous, but it was the kind of deal that could stabilize us for years. The meeting was scheduled. The proposal was tight. Malik and I had rehearsed our pitch like it was a performance. Then 2 days before the meeting, the client suddenly went quiet. No replies, no confirmations, nothing. And when silence shows up in business, it feels a lot like silence in marriage. Familiar and ugly. Malik called his contact, got a short answer. They went with another vendor. I asked why, and the contact said they heard we were unstable, that there were personal issues in leadership, that we might not be reliable. I stared at Malik. Malik stared at me. Because only a handful of people knew about my situation, and none of them would gossip like that. We asked around carefully, and by the end of the day, we had a name that made my skin go cold. Because it was the name saved in Nadia's phone with that harmless emoji. The lover worked at that logistics firm, not a top executive, but close enough to whisper poison in the right ear, close enough to mix my personal crisis into my professional reputation. It was petty, it was strategic, and it was exactly the kind of move someone makes when they think consequences are for other people. For the first time since I left, I felt anger rise, clean and hot. Because it was one thing to break a marriage, it was another thing to reach into my future and try to break my livelihood. I did not storm over there. I did not send threats. I did not make a scene. I called Teresa, and Teresa said good. Now we play chess. She told me to keep everything, the messages, the dates, the proof of his involvement if we could find it. And she reminded me that I could not control rumors, but I could control receipts. Malik pulled some strings and found out who the new vendor was. And here is where life decided to be cinematic. It was a company run by someone I had helped years ago, a guy named Dean who once begged me for advice when he was starting out. I had given him honest tips and even introduced him to a few contacts, not because I expected payback, just because I like building good networks. Dean called me that night, said he heard something weird, said he wanted to check directly, and I told him the truth. Not the emotional version, the business version. There is personal turbulence. It will not affect delivery. My team is solid. I stand by my commitments. Dean paused, then said, I respect that you did not lie, and I respect that you did not trash anyone. He said he would keep the door open for future work. And when the call ended, I realized something important. The lover tried to damage my name, but the attempt revealed who actually trusted me. And that is valuable information. Nadia tried another tactic after that. She stopped apologizing and started blaming. She sent a long message saying I was abandoning her, that I was cold, that I was punishing her. And it was almost funny because she used the same word she had used on me for months, cold, like she suddenly discovered the temperature. I still did not reply. Instead, I focused on what I could build. I worked longer hours, not as an escape, but as a rebuild. I tightened our operations. I found new clients. I made sure my team felt stable. And in quiet moments, I felt grief sneak up. Usually in small places, like seeing her favorite cereal in a store, like hearing someone laugh the way she used to. But every time grief tried to push me toward contacting her, I remembered that she did not just betray me, she risked my health, and she tried to sabotage my career through someone who thought my life was a game. One evening, Malik and I stayed late to finalize a new proposal. He looked up and said, "You know what? The real win is." And I said, "What?" He said, "You did not beg someone to love you. You walked out with your dignity intact." And I thought about that as I drove through the city lights. I was alone in the car, but I did not feel lonely. I felt like a man who had stepped off a sinking ship. And while the water was cold, the shore was visible. And behind me, Nadia was still trying to call my name into the dark, like that alone could change what she chose. And that is when I understood the next phase would not be about her at all. It would be about me turning this mess into momentum. And I was already moving. 3 months after I left, the divorce paperwork moved like slow weather, predictable but exhausting. Nadia stopped showing up in person and started sending voice notes, soft crying, then sharp accusations, then silence again, and I almost relaxed. Until Malik forwarded me an email from an unknown address. It was a short message with a screenshot attached, a cropped piece of Nadia's thread, edited to make it look like I had threatened her. I laughed once because whoever did it had never met Teresa. I sent it to my lawyer, and Teresa replied in 5 minutes. "Good. This is forgery. Keep everything. Do not engage." That night I realized the lover was not just reckless. He was desperate. And desperate people do stupid things. I did not sleep much. Not from fear, from strategy. The next morning I went to the office early and found a small envelope under my door, no return address. Inside was a clinic bill copy with Nadia's name and a sticky note that said, "You owe her." And in that moment, the suspense shifted. This was no longer a breakup. This was a campaign. And I decided I would end it the clean way. With truth, patience, and a final move they would not see coming. I asked Malik to pull the lobby camera footage. The envelope drop was caught clearly. A man in a cap, posture stiff, same build as the lover in the selfies. Teresa filed a report and sent a formal notice. No threats, just consequences. Then I did something Nadia never expected. I requested a calm mediation session, not to reconcile, to close the door properly. She arrived with shaking hands and practiced sadness, but her eyes kept checking the hallway like she wanted backup. When Teresa played the camera stills across the table, Nadia's face drained. She whispered that he promised he would fix everything. I asked one question. Did you tell him details about my business? She hesitated, and that hesitation answered for her. Teresa slid another paper forward, a cease and desist plus documentation of the forged screenshot attempt. Nadia started to speak, then stopped, because for the first time she saw the whole chain. Her affair was not romance, it was leverage, and she had handed someone my address, my schedule, my life. I stood up and said we finished this legally. No more messages, no more surprises, and Nadia nodded like a person waking up too late. The divorce finalized quietly. No courtroom drama, just signatures and a clean split. I kept my company protected. She kept what was fair. And the lover vanished the moment legal letters showed up. Like courage with an expiration date. A year later, our business landed the contract we lost. Not from begging, from outperforming, Dean recommended us. And the logistics firm that once called us unstable quietly came back asking for a meeting. I smiled and declined. 2 years passed and my life looked different. New office, better clients, calmer mornings. Then one rainy afternoon, Nadia walked into my lobby. Thinner, eyes tired, holding a folder like it was a peace offering. She asked to talk. The receptionist glanced at me. I did not move. Nadia said she wanted everything back. The marriage, the comfort, the version of me who used to wait. I looked at her for a long second. Then I turned back to my screen. Not angry, just finished. And my silence said what my old self never could. You do not get to break a home and then ask for a refund. Nadia stood there as if my silence was a language she never learned. She tried again, said she had changed, said she had paid for her mistakes, said she missed who we were, and I believed she missed something. But not me. She missed the safety of my loyalty, the steady life she thought would stay on the shelf while she experimented with chaos. I finally spoke. Not to argue, to close. I said, I hope you get healthy. I hope you build a life that does not require lying. But you cannot build it on my back. Her eyes filled. She asked if I ever loved her. I said I did. That is why I left when love turned into disrespect. Then I nodded to security. Not to remove her roughly, just to guide her out. She did not fight. She walked away slowly, and when the lobby door closed, I felt light. Not because I won against her, because I chose myself. Later that night, I sat alone in my office, looked at the city lights, and laughed softly. Not bitter, grateful, betrayal tried to shrink me, but it accidentally introduced me to my own strength, and that is the kind of success nobody can take back.